it doesn't matter the level you're at, you can be a leader and you can implement change. And, just by your examples and the things you do with the membership.
Welcome to this week's episode of Friday 5 with Dave Adams. Today, we're going to have a real treat having a conversation with my friend Dan Baines, who is the CEO of Bloom Credit Union in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and has also served for 14 years on the Michigan Credit Union League board, currently as vice chairman. I've known Dan over the years. I've had an opportunity to spend some social time with Dan, playing golf or having a meal together, spending time on the board of directors and so on. But as I've observed Dan as a leader of his credit union for the last 40 years, a lot of what he talks about in this interview reinforces his loyalty to his credit union, his commitment to member service, and really is emblematic of what credit unions stand for, in my opinion, in terms of being different, because they do provide that special focus on member service in a unique way. The credit union has 14,000 members and 160 million in assets, located in Wyoming, Michigan, part of the Grand Rapids community, as you know. Almost 40 years in the credit union industry, active in the Grand River chapter there as a chapter leader. And Dan has really committed his life to the credit union story and the credit union movement. Welcome to this episode of Friday 5 with Dave Adams. You're going to enjoy this conversation that I'm having with Dan Baines, CEO of Bloom Credit Union and a credit union leader who I've known for most of my 23 years here in Michigan. So welcome, Dan. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you today.
Morning, Dave. It's glad to be here. It's really good to see you again. And I know we're going to have a little fun in this discussion. So.
Uh-oh, that's a warning, it sounds like. I'm looking forward to it. Everything's fair game. I must say, yes, one of the purposes for this Friday 5 video podcast series is to get better connected, both in terms of the conversations that you and I are able to have and that I'm able to have with other leaders, but also to be able to share these conversations with folks in the credit union community. It's been tough for all of us to be disconnected.
Right.
What would you say is some of the hardest things for you in terms of what COVID and the pandemic have done to us?
Well, for me personally and stuff, it was more that, as I was telling someone earlier, that working from home when all that happened and that being disconnected from all the employees here and the people that you work with, I think there's a feeling that you're not there to support them when they have to be here on the front line. And even though we only had the drive-throughs open, that disconnection with them. And we had issues, I know, at my house with a slow internet service and 3-4 people trying to be on it at one time. And when the restrictions were changed a little bit, my spouse and I worked together, Becky, and we came back to the office. We've been here for about a month now, and it seems that connections with people are redeveloping and our lobbies are open and things like that. In fact, this morning I had a member just stop by and knock on the door and say, "Hey, can I come and talk to you?" And I'm like, I got about 5 minutes, but I appreciate if you can come back sometime.
Yeah. What about positives? Do you think there have been some silver linings or positive things that have come from this?
Yeah, one of ours was actually, we had started a remodel project here, and with our lobby closed, we got it done in about 3 weeks. And so all of our lobbies and stuff, a year ago, we changed our name and we changed our color scheme, and we've remodeled all of our interiors in our offices to match. So to try and enhance and improve our member experience. So, that was a silver lining for us, and it worked out really well.
So in the introduction, I mentioned a little bit about your bio and a little bit about the credit union. You have 14,000 members and 160 million in assets, and you've been CEO there for almost 40 years. So your career, as you look over your career, and obviously you and I are getting near the end of our careers, just talk about your career journey a little bit as you reflect back. You're your career path, your credit union
Mhm.
experience is pretty extensive.
Yeah. It was, I thinking about that. It actually started about 43 years ago. I was 24, and
You don't need to keep making yourself older and older. Come on,
wait, I'm
but while
young
you're ahead,
still. I was 24 young. Now I'm about 67 young. So, I'm
yeah,
getting younger as it goes. But
you look much younger.
yeah, thanks, Dave. Mutual admiration
We
here.
have the white
But
beard, dueling white beards going here. I'm sure people can notice, and I feel
that's
like
true.
you're definitely outdoing me. But anyway,
No,
sorry to interrupt.
that's all right. I was working for a small loan company, and one of the old competitors back then. But and some of them now, the people that we don't want to do, that we are against payday lenders and things like that. But I worked for a gentleman that knew a person that ran Clark Credit Union back in the day, and he's like, "You should try and get hired there." And I kept trying and trying. He wouldn't let me in. So finally, one day, my dad told me, he was a member of the VA Employees Federal Credit Union, which is now part of Honor. But he said, their CEO just left. Maybe you should call the board chairman. The board chairman was one of my old scoutmasters. So at 24, I became the CEO of a credit union, which back then wasn't too bad. 24 today, in the complex things that we have to do, I'm not sure I could do it. I'm not sure I was ready for it back then.
Wow, that's
But
incredibly young.
yeah, it was. And 3 years later, I applied here and I came up to my multi-products credit union. In fact, we've had two name changes in the 40-year time I've been here.
So
Um,
how small was the credit union when you started in terms of employees versus now?
we probably had 9 employees, and today we have like 44
Hmm.
and 5 branches.
Well, a lot
Four
of people aren't
branches,
going to
yeah,
relate to what I'm going to say
five.
here because they may not know who John Stockton is and the Utah Jazz and may not even follow the NBA. But one of my sports heroes
Oh,
was John Stockton, who set all the records for assists and steals and was just a consummate point guard for the Utah Jazz, a team I followed. But um,
mhm.
what I admired about John is he spent his whole career with one team and was loyal to that team when he could have had other opportunities. So, um,
Yeah.
what was it about the credit union and your experience there that made you so loyal that you would work your whole career there at one credit union?
Um, the people that I work with, the board members that I have had back then and stuff, and I've been here. I still have a great board, and they're going through changes. Also, we have been getting younger people on our board and stuff, and so that's working out well. But location, and then started a family, and just it worked out very well for me to be here 40 some years almost.
So when you think of that career and you think about leadership, we all go to conferences and uh, we learn about leadership and management and everything we need to know, and we do our networking and we read about it, we talk about it. But when you think about what it's like to lead a credit union for 40 years, starting out very small and now being a really decent sized credit union that is full service and that serves 14,000 plus members. Leadership lessons, I guess I'll ask it this way. When you were 24 starting out and you were a very young leader, what are some things you know now that you wish you had known then in terms of how to lead people, how to lead a credit
Oh
union?
man, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it's changed a big time. I mean, and the responsibilities. When I was 24, I didn't really have a lot of patience and stuff, and I didn't have a lot of life experience either. So I wasn't very empathetic towards issues. And when I came here, I think everybody that worked for me was probably 10 to 15 years older than me.
Mhm.
And they had children, they had things, and until you experience a lot of those things, I had to, my empathy for situations they would have at home and that sort of stuff were just, I wasn't very empathetic towards it. And that's part of growth. And as I got older and stuff and was around that and experienced some of those things, my attitudes towards that have changed quite a bit. And leadership also is something that later on in my years here, it's like we've gone through some things of talking to all of our employees that, it doesn't matter the level you're at, you can be a leader and you can implement change. And, just by your examples and the things you do with the membership and with each other, you don't have to be the manager or the president or anybody else to be a leader. You can be a leader at your own level. And that,
That's
that
such a,
goes into, yeah,
yeah.
goes
I was
into
just going to say,
helping what we did.
I can relate so much to the comment about empathy. You may know I was 29 when I became CEO of the Utah Credit Union League, and just like you
Mhm.
said, at the time I thought I knew what I needed to know, and I thought I had all the skill sets. But when I reflect back, I had a similar experience to you. That was just really powerful as you were describing how, as young leaders, sometimes we haven't had the life experiences. Doesn't mean we're not qualified, but I
Right.
think it's a challenge for all leaders, regardless of their tenure, regardless of their age, to realize just how important empathy is and authenticity. And then you also mentioned everybody can be a leader. So how do you foster that? How do you encourage with your team members to realize that you don't have all the answers? You need them to all be leaders.
Well, I think part of it is being honest with them. And if you don't have an answer, tell them you don't have an answer, but you'll get back with them when you find the answer, and get back with them. If it takes longer than you've expected, let them know you're still trying to find it. Um, to teach them that, you know, we used to, around here used to be, this doesn't work. And it's like, well, how can it be better? I don't know, but it doesn't work. Well, now we have, I think a gal recently asked me, can we do this differently? And I said, well, how would that look then? So she put it all together and sent it to me, and so it's more of a mindset, and it's something that you have to do constantly, is asking them, because, they work with the tools we give them. They're the best people to improve those tools and let us know that this needs to be changed or not. And
That's
so
another
it's,
great that's another great concept, to resist saying no too quickly, but to rather
mhm,
say, well, how would that work? Why don't you put something together and show me how that would work?
right.
I'll consider it. I think that's
Mhm,
great. So talk about the credit and difference, 40 years, and the industry has changed so much, and so many things for the better and some things certainly for worse. That's
right.
the way life is. But what does the credit union difference mean to you, and how do you work to live the credit union difference at your credit union?
Well, I think, initially when I was 24, it was, yeah, it's about people helping people. And I think we thought we were doing that. And even here at Bloom, my personal credit union coming into Bloom, we thought we were doing a great job. And I think in the last few years, we've come to realize that there's more that we could do. And so we hired a person to come in and train us, and we spent time away from work, teaching people about leadership, teaching people how to be approachable, and how to actually, as we say, cultivate our relationships with our members. We used to do a really good job, I think, at helping people that had anywhere, it's like, good credit scores and things like that sort of thing. But we weren't helping the people that didn't have great credit scores. And something that we've gone through, and we're still going through it, and we do it every day now, is when someone comes in. And I mean, one of our examples, we had a person who came in and a year ago and needed some money to do something. And so we sat down with them and we went through their entire financial picture and figured out what would be best for them, and also figured out how to help them improve their credit score. And so we made them a loan a year ago, and they came back just recently in the last couple months, and they needed some dental work done. And in that time period, they did what we had sat down and talked to them about, and their credit score increased over 100 points. They're now over a 700 credit score person. And we're doing this with all of our members, and sitting down, helping them and showing them. I mean, this gal, we reduced her interest rate. I mean, because of our risk-based pricing, she was like at 15%. We reduced her interest rate by 10.5% and refinanced her loan. And we tell everybody that we do this with, that, you know what, if you follow these instructions and these steps, you come back in 9 to 12 months, we'll look at your loan, look at your credit score, and we will rewrite your loan and lower the rate to what your new credit score is at. And
Wow.
we've been people coming to us left and right when they come back, and it's like, oh my God, you guys are wonderful. We love you. And we've expanded to the point where we're helping people with lower credit scores now. And we still help those with great credit scores. We can do that.
Yeah.
But the work and the making a difference really comes with the people that are more challenged with this.
Well, what I love about what you just went through, what if I ask that question, sometimes I might get platitudes, that the credit union difference is about providing great service, whatever. But what you just did is you just walked us through individual member stories. And when I think of 110 million plus credit union members in the US and 5.5 million in Michigan, the credit union difference truly is those one at a time member experiences where you're helping people who aren't going to get that help at a Wells Fargo or a Chase or Bank of America or some other large financial institution. I really like that, and I hope those listening can think in terms of how the credit union difference isn't just words; it's what we do for individual members one at a time.
Right.
That was great.
Correct.
So what about the environment we're in right now? So COVID is going to be short-lived. Before long, we'll be looking in the rearview mirror, and there'll be a broadly accepted vaccine, and we'll all be telling our children and grandchildren about the amazing times we lived through, unprecedented. But for credit unions on the front lines, it's affecting how you provide service and how you help meet those needs during this period. But also, we're now in a recession. So we've been through tough times before, but just talk a little bit about how your credit is approaching the current environment.
Well, we actually, when we were remodeling all our offices, we were like putting in teller pods, opening these things up, making it more approachable for the member experience. And then all of a sudden COVID happens. So now we're out there buying dividers, to put partitions up between people and all of this. And it's like, yeah, this is not what we wanted to do, but, I don't know who you're talking to saying it's going to be over soon, but I've heard it's going to be around for another year. But the thing is getting across to people. We've had a couple of our employees who thought they were exposed. They've had to go through testing and things, and we've had to keep them out of the office. But a lot of times employees, members don't think about it. But I don't know what credit union does. If you were to infect a branch and you've got to close it because 6 or 7 people or your whole staff is exposed to it, and then half of them test positive, that you may have to close that branch for a while. And so I think it's important, and we do this with our staff. I mean, we're wearing masks, their shields, taking their temperature every day and checking them as they come in. And I mean, that's a difficult part right now, but as you say, eventually that will be gone. And but we've done a lot of things. A couple of years ago, we also started using DocuSign. We weren't using electronic documents and things like that, and we're doing that now. And for some odd reason, our loan growth this year, we're about 200,000 behind what our goal is year to date, which is really kind of crazy because our loan demand has not stopped. For us, it's been extraordinarily strong, and we're thinking that by a year end, we can probably even achieve the goals that we set, which is kind of odd to us. But
I agree with you. By the way, I think conventional wisdom is that COVID's going to be with us for probably at least a year. And I guess it was the optimist in me when I talk about looking back in the rearview mirror. That's in the grand scheme of things, that's a relatively short period of time. And
yes.
I think as we talk with each other, with our team members and our colleagues, we kind of have to coach each other to keep things in proper perspective, that a few sacrifices we have to make over a period of a year isn't too extreme. But a lot of what you're talking about, and a lot of what I talk about with credit leaders about the current environment, it just seems like a lot of trends that had already been in place, like remote service delivery and mobile banking and work from home, were things that we were already dealing with. They just got accelerated, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and we did. Our our branch traffic went down. Our online banking, our phone calls to our call center went out of sight. But since we've opened our lobbies, we have five of them, or three of the five are back to normal, and two are about 10% down in walk-in traffic right now. So I think people
Well,
are, they're like us. People they want to go out and do things, even though there are other ways to do it, but they're tired of being at home and they want to get out and see other people besides the family.
yeah, it's I
Mm,
hear that from credit union leaders a lot. Very large multi-billion-dollar credit union leaders who talk about investing in technology and remote service delivery, but the reality is you have to serve members in the ways they want to be served. And so if they want to
right.
come into the branches or use the drive-throughs, you have to accommodate that. And I think we're going to have to focus on omni-channel service delivery for a very long time.
Right.
But just a related question before we wrap up and before I get to the good stuff where I ask you about your personal interests and so on. Um, 40 years. So if you're looking at it with an optimistic eye, as opposed to, all these things have changed and man, it wasn't like the good old days. But if you say, okay, after 40 years, what is it that is better about the credit industry? What is it about um, the evolution of credit unions that kind of gives you hope for their future?
Oh man. We've been through so much, that the housing crash, like you said, recessions, things like that, and we've weathered them all. And it's nice to see that some of the merger things have slowed down. We still need smaller credit unions. There are larger credit unions. I think the credit union industry is going to stay. Things have gotten more complex as things happen. There's more regulations. As things ease, some of them tend to get less go away. But I think we've been here long enough, and I think there's you know we know what we're doing. Our trade association, you guys have helped us immensely. In fact, it was kind of interesting. We were talking the other day about this issue with schools and people going back. And guess what? I get a notice that you guys are timely in giving us a webinar this afternoon on ways to deal with this. So, I think we're prepared for the future, and I think that we'll continue moving forward. And it's just things have changed. I have people come in sometimes, and they'd laugh, but my interest rate sucks. And they remember we had 6% interest. I said, yeah, but y'all paid 12% for your loans. You ready to go back to
Oh,
that?
right,
No.
right,
So I
right,
mean, a lot of things have evolved, and it's been competitive stuff, that competitive pressures, and I think we've met the challenge, and I think we'll continue to do that.
right. And I would say it this way: credit unions are nothing like they were 40 years ago, or when I started my career, very
Right.
back in the early 80s. We have overlapping fields of membership, and we've had a lot of mergers, and the average
Hmm.
credit size is much larger, more complex, more full service, more bank-like in some respects. But where I think the positive is just that the way credit unions provide such a member-centric service and a
Right.
value proposition, we're still the best rates and the lowest fees and the highest levels of service. And as long as we stick to that, we're going to be providing a service that nobody else provides. And that's
Right.
really the key thing for me is, despite all the changes, good and bad, if credit unions aren't around, who's going to be doing what credit unions are doing during tough
Right.
times like these, right?
Correct.
So let's wrap up with the personal side. So outside of work, I know you have a lot of personal loves and interests. I
Hmm.
know you're nursing an injury from one of those
There
outside
you
interests,
go.
but share with us what you
Mm.
do in your free time.
Oh, like I said, I was playing tennis for a while. I actually got my first golf game in the day before I broke my wrist. So that was fortunate, I guess. I got one game in this year. But, that's that. I love hunting and fishing. When I retire eventually, it's going to be, I'd like to do more saltwater fishing and spend some time where it's a little warmer in the wintertime. And I like cooking a lot. I have a smoker and stuff that I like smoking meat and cooking on and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. So if you're in town, let me know. We'll do steaks on my smoker or something. But
Boy, I look forward to
and
that.
okay. and we'll play a little golf and then go have some dinner. But
Well, I'm
you
smart
know,
enough to know that you're a good golfer. I'm smart enough to know that I need to get you out on the course when you still have a sprained wrist or an injury that you're nursing back to health.
well, if the doctor won't let me play, you get nothing, Dave. So, and
Well,
you know, one of the best things that's happened in the last year is my wife and I have a new granddaughter, and she's living with us. So it's a lot of fun chasing her around. So
that's just where I was going to go, because I know when you talk about your personal interests, as I've known you over the last 20 years or so, you're very family centered and very devoted to your children and your wife and the family side of things. I also want to comment on your trade association work. 14 years on the Michigan Credit Union League board, currently serving as vice chair. And our credit community should be very appreciative, as am I, for that time commitment and that service that you've rendered outside your own credit union.
thank you.
Well, Dan Baines, thank you for the conversation. I've gotten a lot out of it. I've learned some things that that I hadn't really thought about. I love, in particular, the one member at a time approach to member service, and there's a real lesson there for all of us. Thank you for taking the time to have a great conversation on Friday 5 with Dave Adams.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Dave. Have a great day.
Well, that conversation with Dan Baines was everything that I could have hoped for. I learned some things that I didn't expect from the conversation. I thought the way that Dan focused on, when I asked him the question about the credit union difference, and how he didn't talk in platitudes, he talked about one credit union member at a time, helping members improve their credit, lower their interest rates, improve their financial lives. I love that, and I think so many credit unions approach the credit union difference that way, but it was great to hear it from Dan. I also, it was reinforced with me the loyalty that Dan showed to his credit union. Almost 40 years there, working in the same shop, started out with 9 employees and growing to the size that it is now as a large full service credit union serving 14,000 plus members. I also really appreciated Dan's views on leadership, and how when he was a young 24-year-old CEO, he looked at things much differently and perhaps didn't have the empathy, didn't have the life experiences that he had to learn along the way. He was very qualified to be CEO. Age doesn't matter in that respect. But for those of us of any age as a CEO, learning the importance of empathy. And the other thing he mentioned was just how, you have to resist saying no when staff members have ideas, but rather say, hey, put some work into that idea, bring it back to me, I'll consider it. I love that. So Dan Baines, CEO of Bloom Credit Union, thank you again for sharing all of those views and life experiences with us. And to all of you watching and listening, I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.